F1 circus moves to the hills and we're here for the Austrian Grand Prix. But before we get into that, we've got to discuss the comments that Tom made last week. Now, Tom stated last week that Ferrari were never interested in signing Carlos Sainz for another season. They believed that the end of Sainz's time at Ferrari was last season, but not this season. So how did it all come about? Well, Tom obviously lost his drive at Ferrari because he stated that he had ideas and plans for Ferrari to move forward, which Ferrari did not agree with, and of course with Tom losing the championship when theoretically he should have probably won it at the end of last season, Ferrari felt enough was enough. Now, Ferrari's dream duo was Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen. They managed to get Lewis Hamilton's signature signed and done. Tom was off the books, so they were in a good position. Then they went and contacted Max Verstappen. Verstappen stated in his clause in his contract when he was sent one by Ferrari, he did not want Tom at the team, which Tom was no longer there. But he crucially didn't want Lewis Hamilton at the team either. Now, Ferrari completely rejected this contract offer and stated that they were not going to go ahead with what Verstappen wanted, meaning that they couldn't get a different driver to replace Carlos Sainz, meaning they were forced to sign him. That's what Tom has said. Ferrari, though, were disgusted with what Tom has said and have strongly denied every single comment that Tom has made. They are now demanding a public apology from Tom for creating such horrific rumours and putting a very, very bad limelight on the team. Ferrari have also stated there is going to be no more comments made on this matter publicly. So, quite interesting here that they're not going to make anything public anymore. But if there's any more comments to state, they're going to do that internally. Whether that means maybe talking to Carlos Sainz, we're not quite sure. But the fact that they don't want to make anything else public is kind of fair enough. But the fact that they're going to continue with comments is a rather interesting statement. Taking a look at the race news then heading into the Austrian Grand Prix, it was Red Bull and Ferrari that was setting the pace here in Austria, but these practice sessions were a little bit outside of what we were expecting as teams are getting ready for a potential wet Grand Prix. Now that all depends, of course, on how things play out with the weather radar. One team that's hoping that that rain doesn't come along is Red Bull. They hope that the rain will come after the Grand Prix or even before it and stop before the race begins. They want as much dry running as possible as they believe they've got the car to win if the rain stays away. But Lando Norris is ready for whatever the weather throws at him. He is a man that is ready to get going here in Austria and he cannot wait for this race to get underway as he's finding himself a new breed of confidence. And one man that's lacking confidence and needs it if it is actually wet is Tom. He stated that in the practice sessions his car was absolutely awful during the dry running and just did not have any form of confidence whatsoever. He believes that if it's a wet race, he can try and make something work and hopefully get himself in amongst the leaders. If it's not wet, don't expect him to be anywhere near the leaders, is what he's saying. Well, is it dry or is it wet? Let's go find out. It's time for qualifying and the race for the Austrian Grand Prix. Yo, what's going on, guys? It is Foxydude here. Welcome back to a brand new video and another episode of the F1 Journey. We're here for the Austrian Grand Prix. If you had enjoyed the video, feel free to drop it a like and subscribe to the channel if you're new around here as well. And let's get straight into this qualifying session then on what should be a very simple lap, but of course we need to make sure that we get it done and dusted. So as we go through the final few quarters here on our main flying lap here, you can see that we managed to set a 58.8, but unfortunately De Vries sets a 58 flat, which kind of tells us where we are in the pack here. But as we go on to our final qualifying lap here, it was going nicely until I just went a little bit wide there and lost myself some time. And you can see again missing that other apex, as of course with the dirty tyres from going wide, it really didn't help us out. And of course we've got 2 corners to go. We still got a 10th to find. We just take the apex quite nicely actually. The final corner we also take pretty well. Unfortunately though, we do end up losing time and we could not improve on our original lap. Here we go then, the talking has been done off the track, it's time to do the talking on the track. We're here for the Austrian Grand Prix. This is season number 8, round 12 of the season. We're here in the Styrian Hills. Unfortunately, for a lot of the drivers, it's a wet Styrian Hills. The rain is falling, and that's going to put a very different outcome on how we're going to see this race pan out here. So we have 3 DRS zones. Unfortunately though, for the drivers, overtaking is going to be that much harder because the DRS has been disabled. Obviously in these wet weather conditions, they're not going to be able to go out there and get that DRS open, meaning they're going to have to make their overtakes on track in different places maybe than what they normally would. And of course, we do have those soft, medium and hard compound tyres, but we will not be using them as we're going to have to use the wet weather tyres and also the intermediate compound tyres. That safety car is definitely going to need to be on hand, as we could expect to see that coming out at any certain point. Looking at the starting grid though for today's Grand Prix, it is Rees who is on pole position with Nick de Vries so close to his first pole position for Mercedes-Benz. Van Dorn qualifies in 3rd with Sergio Perez impressing for Mercedes in 4th. Sam starts in 5th with Daniel Ricciardo down in P6, but only a 10th and a half off his teammate. Sainz qualifies in 7th with Lando Norris starting in P8. Looking at row number 5, we've got Gasly starting in 9th, 4 tenths off the pace with Lewis Hamilton, a lonely P10 for Ferrari with Verstappen lining up 11th. George Russell qualifies in P12, he's 7 tenths off the pace. Tom Arcels starting in 13th place, 8 tenths off of the field with Leclerc, a very disappointing P14, Bottas and Schumacher 15th and 16th. Then it is Oscar Piastri, he lines up 17th with Callum Ilott lining in 18th place, and the back row of the grid is formed of Nico Hülkenberg and Robert Schwartzman, and that's your grid for the Austrian Grand Prix. Right, here we go then. We are here for the start of the Austrian Grand Prix. It is a full wet race, but it is going to dry out at some point in this Grand Prix. When, we're not really sure, but let's look at the grid though, because we're underway here for the start of the Austrian Grand Prix. It's a okay-ish getaway, a lot of wheel spin off the line there, struggling in these wet conditions, but we're going to go right around the outside here of a whole bunch of cars now. Look at that start that we've got here, already up at the 7th place, about to attract the Mercedes here for 6th place, and we're already now into the top 6 here after an enormously good getaway here. And we're going to have a look here around towards turn 2. I have to go onto the curb ever so slightly. Sainz forces us a bit wide there, going off track slightly, but we just about managed to keep it intact here. But as we go onto the straight now here, Sainz has got a lot more straight line speed than what we do at the moment here as we go in towards turn 4. We're going to try and go right around the outside here of Carlos Sainz, but it's a bit too deep on the brakes there, and we're going to have to unfortunately lose the position there. But for us though, we're already into 5th place in this Grand Prix, so what a start that was in all of the proceedings there. Just going right around the outside, his back end sliding a little bit there, but now all of a sudden we've gone from having a lot of momentum here and making some overtakes to now just being able to settle into the Grand Prix, because there's already a little bit of a gap forming between ourselves and the drivers in front. So we need to make sure that we close that gap down a little bit here as we go to the second to last corner, a little bit wide, missing the apex. This is what I mean by settling down now. We need to find the exact braking points. We pretty much need to find everything. We need to find where we need to brake, the correct speed to turn in, everything like that. But that was an awesome start for us, and let's find out why it was such an awesome start. So, 5 nights go out here, and for us now, we did not get the good getaway. We actually got a lot of wheel spin. We struggled off the line here, but everybody went for the inside line. I, as you can see there, went right around the outside and just used the track to my advantage. Everyone was tucked inside the apex there, and it really didn't help them out here. So this is on board now with Lewis Hamilton here. So his start, this is what I'm proving by him going to the inside here. Look at that. So he's now on the inside. Look at us just swoop right around the outside there, and we've got all the space in the world that we were able to complete that, and it really didn't help out for them. Now, this is on board here. I believe this is with Mick Schumacher here. Now, he gets a very good start off the line here, and he's able to then tuck himself towards the inside line. And there's us just in front there, swooping right around the outside. But he does the same thing, look, gets a couple of overtakes done, and is able to get on with it. Lap 3 of the Grand Prix here, and we're on board now with Charles Leclerc, who's had an absolutely awful qualifying session at the moment. Oh, there's a bit of contact there into turn 1. He's not having a great race, and he's actually at the back here, fighting with the Aston Martins, the Fords, and also the Porsches, which is not where you expect Leclerc to be in all this. Our championship contender at the moment here as he goes, as he tries to go 3 wide here, down the inside into turn 3. Somehow he's actually managed to stay in front of the Ford, and he's actually managed to keep it intact here with the Aston Martin. But unfortunately, that Aston of Piastri is going to stay in front here. But here comes Leclerc now, going to go down the inside here in towards turn 4, and Leclerc should get this move done here versus Piastri. But Piastri will continue to fight this one as much as he can, but unfortunately, that fight is now over. Leclerc does make his way in front of the Aston, but he's in a lot of trouble. Lap 5 of the Grand Prix, there's a lot of wheel spin there from us, losing the back end there in these wet weather conditions as we were trying to close up to the back of Carlos Sainz, but that's going to have to wait for a little bit. But as we now go in towards turn 3 here, we've got a nice run now on Carlos Sainz. We're going to try and cut back on him, but it doesn't quite work out. But eventually, midway through the corner, we're now going to tuck back into the slipstream here on the straight now and go for an attack here on Carlos Sainz. Going to go to the outside of turn 4 in these wet weather conditions. I feel more comfortable going around the outside of drivers in these race conditions, and it's going to work for us because we're ahead of Sainz now and up into 4th place now in this Grand Prix. We've got some tremendous pace here in these wet conditions, and I'm trying to utilise that because I know that it's going to dry off later in the Grand Prix. Lap 4 of the Grand... No, not lap 4, I'm in P4. Lap 6 of this Grand Prix, went out to the back of Sam here, but we get that all wrong and lose a bunch of time in the process here, and that's going to give Sam the optus that he needs to try and go for this move here on, I believe this is Sergio Perez in front of him now. Here goes Sam, now going to go to the inside line here, make that move stick now. Late braking, it's actually De Vries. I got it wrong as he goes down the inside of the Mercedes, and he's going to try and get that straight line speed. We're going to try and cut back on the pair of them here, but unfortunately both of them just blocked me off here. So now Sam on the straight here, we're kind of stuck. I can't really go 3 wide. I could try it, but it's just a bit too risky. So as they go through, I'm going to cut back on De Vries, but I tried to. Actually made a little bit of contact with De Vries there, but we are still side by side now with the Mercedes. We're going to brake late here in towards the middle sector, and just as we've done on every other occasion, use the outside line to our advantage and get past De Vries. And now all of a sudden, we see ourselves right behind the Red Bull of Sam, who goes a little bit wide there actually through the second corner there, and that's going to give us a little bit of confidence to try and close that gap and get on with this here as we go now through the final 2 corners here as we're chasing that Red Bull down. And you can see here, look how quick we are through these final 2 corners as we now onto the back of them here as we drive down towards turn 1 here. That's the fastest final sector. We're going to go for it in towards turn 1. We'll have a little look here. That's going to fluster Sam though. He's gone wide into turn 1, locked at the front on the rears, and he's off the track a little bit, and that second place completely handed to us there. So thank you very much, Sam. I really appreciate that. We're up into second now in this Grand Prix as we go to lap 7 here. On board with Lewis Hamilton now, who's right behind my teammate Gasly, who's pressurising the Mercedes of Sergio Perez. Now that I managed to get the 2 Mercs right here. And you can see that Hamilton now is under pressure a little bit actually from Verstappen now as they go into the first corner here. Verstappen goes around the outside of Lewis Hamilton. A little bit of a contact there made between the 2 drivers, but Hamilton stays in front of Verstappen, and now they've got a slipstream run here on Pierre Gasly. So let's see if any of them are going to try and make the move on Gasly here. Verstappen's actually using that slipstream to get as far ahead as he can of Hamilton as possible. Use the outside line then, as we've seen from all the other AIs, and he's through. Verstappen passes Lewis Hamilton here on lap 8. That's some good moves there from the Jaguar. Now on board here with Daniel Ricciardo, who's trying to make a move here on the Mercedes. Let's see if he can try and make this one stick now as we go in towards the third corner here. Cam Ricciardo used the outside line on De Vries, and I think he is going to be just about successful with that move here on Nick De Vries. So he gets himself through, and he is now up into, I believe he's in P7 actually at this stage of the race. De Vries though comes back at him in towards turn 4 now, so De Vries doesn't want to give this one up just too easily here. Has that outside line that we've been saying is so beneficial, but he can't make it work. He doesn't quite have the downforce to try and make that work, and the confidence in the wet to really go for it now. But for us though, lap 9 of the Grand Prix, we're here now on to second place in the race, but it's not going to be second place for long because the man who is out front, Reese, is out of the Austrian Grand Prix. There he is, parked to the side of the circuit. He was in such complete control in this Grand Prix, even with the pace that we've got at this stage of the Grand Prix. I couldn't catch Reese quick enough. So Reese there, that's a huge blow for him and a huge blow for his championship aspirations, because of course Reese was, what was he now? He was quite a few points back in this Grand Prix, and to now miss out on those 25 points is crucial. But for us though, we're coming into the pits here because Jeff has now told me that he thinks that it's the right time to come into the pits for a set of the intermediate tyres. Now what we saw in Imola, if you remember, we won that Grand Prix because we were told to come into the pits for Inters. No one else decided to make that move for Inters. At this stage, no one made the move to Inters. And as we go on to lap 12 of the Grand Prix, everybody is staying out. No one, thank you very much for that move, is going onto the Inters. So it's getting a little bit interesting now because we're now down the order. We're in 18th place, second to last in this Grand Prix. We now have to try and overtake the whole field here. But what you can see is we're going faster. And you can see another fastest lap by 2/10 from our personal best lap here as we go in towards the first corner now. Attacking the Porsche of Nico Hülkenberg now on the straight. Not quite getting the best exit here, but that's absolutely fine because we make our way up the hill now towards turn 3. We'll go to the outside line, which is fine. Going to get boxed in a little bit here as we try to attack Bottas. My bad, I thought it was Hülkenberg, but Hülkenberg is the other Porsche car in front, but we just get tremendous traction off of turn 3, and we are in front. And now, next up is going to be Nico Hülkenberg to try and attack here as we go now down in towards turn 4. I had a little look for that outside line. I actually thought I was going to outbrake myself and go right into the back of him, and I didn't want to do that. So I decided to just bide my time and basically counteract and not crash is the best word to describe there. Now as we go through in towards this middle sector, you can just see here that even though we're stuck behind this Porsche, we're not quite gaining as much as we should, which does show that there is still pace in these Inters. It's just, you know, we're trying to find a way through a car that's blocking us at the moment. But eventually now, you can see that a lot of the drivers, there goes the Bottas behind us. They are starting to pit now and go onto the Inters. So now they're trying to go for it. Meanwhile, we're going for the move here on Hülkenberg around the outside into turn 1. It's a lovely, clean move there. And we're now up into P11. The biggest problem now, what everyone's going to have here as we go on to lap 16 of this Grand Prix, they're pitting too late to do this. They're now going to a point where it's not beneficial for them anymore. There goes our teammate Gasly into the pits. We're now a pit stop clear of Pierre Gasly in this Grand Prix, and we're also now catching Charles Leclerc here in the Audi, who's also not stopped yet in this Grand Prix for a set of the intermediates as we go a little bit wide there, we're braking a bit too late there. But this is just crucial now for these drivers here. They spent yet again for the second race so far this season as we're going to launch it up the inside here on Leclerc. He turns in on us. It's a little bit of an aggressive move there, but I had to make it stick. And we get very nice traction off of there. But once again though, these guys, they waited too long to go on to the Inters. I went early on that, and it's benefited us quite nicely here. And here is Sam now being attacked here by Lando Norris, going up the hill in towards turn 3 here. Of course, we know how good Norris is in the wet around here. Just go back to Zandvoort when Norris managed to steal the lead on the last lap from Sam, and he's got that position. And look at the traction that he's got off the exit of that corner. That's tremendous speed there. And Sam is really struggling now in these wet weather conditions because he's lost the back end through turn 1. And he's given the Sainz a great invitation to go for a move. Carbon copy of what Lando Norris has just done. And around the outside in towards turn 3, Sam will cover it off, but Sainz will say, nope, I'm coming through, whether you like that or not. And he's made the move stick, and he is ahead of Sam in this Grand Prix now. Lap 30 of the Grand Prix. It's been a quiet stint, actually, but for us now, we're miles clear of the field. We've pretty much nailed this Grand Prix, and now Jeff is telling me the time is right to come in for a set of dry tyres, but with only 5 laps to go. He wanted me to go onto the mediums. We're not doing that. We're going onto a set of softs because they're the fastest tyres, and they'll easily do 5 laps in this Grand Prix. But we've literally had the perfect race so far. We're well out front. No one is really coming near us. We're so quick in these wet conditions. And now it's going to be interesting to see how we get on in the dry. Now, of course, we've got such a good gap anyway that unless we make a catastrophic error, we're in the bin. But apart from that, it's been a very, very comfortable Grand Prix. We've now rejoined this race, crucially, not in the lead. We're now in second place in this Grand Prix because Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari has stayed out. He's going to try and get to the end of the race on a set of the Inters. Will he make that work? We'll have to find out. Lap 31 though, these drivers are still on the Inters. That's Gasly swooping right around the outside there of Sergio Perez. That's a lovely move there from our teammate Gasly. DRS though has now been enabled, so Ricciardo's move here on Sergio is going to be nice and simple. It really is nice and simple. He's got the move done even before the corner there, so lovely overtake there from Ricciardo. And for Sergio Perez, that's 2 places lost in the span of 1 corner. But lap 33 of the Grand Prix, we have now got Carlos Sainz in our sights here. He's being unlapped by one of the Porsche cars here, and unfortunately for him, that's really going to cost him badly now because he's got a lot of time to make up if he's going to win this Grand Prix. But unfortunately, that I don't think is going to be the case here as we go now in towards the middle sector here. We're going to just tuck in right behind him. Now we're going to take the inside line here as much as we can here. Sainz is struggling now, swooping around the outside here. But now we've got the straight here where that Ferrari is quick in a straight line, but into the second to last corner. Back end slides a little bit, going off the circuit ever so slightly, but the move is done. It is complete. Back into the lead of the Austrian Grand Prix, and Sainz's strategy, well, it's not really working because he's now 5 seconds a lap slower in this Grand Prix. Lap 34 though, someone who's had, can I just say, someone who's had a miracle comeback here is this man going for a move, Charles Leclerc. He was fighting the Porsches and the Aston Martins and was down in 16th place when we were on the intermediate tyres, okay? He's now just overtaken Lando Norris. That's for 2nd place in this Grand Prix. What a drive and a comeback from Charles Leclerc, but it's not going to be 2nd for long because Norris now wants that back as they go in towards turn 4. Leclerc though fights him off and stays in 2nd place in this Grand Prix. But what a drive from him, but also from ourselves here because we now going a little bit wide there. I'm trying to push for the fastest lap, but it's not really working out here. But into the last 2 corners now. It has been a beautiful drive from us here today. Round the final 2 corners, the weather gods were with us. We're going to win the Austrian Grand Prix and take a full handy 25 points with us to go with that. That is a beautiful race with a beautiful race result. And of course, just as we've seen many times this season, we have been benefited by good fortune because when you look at the fastest lap, so I'll cover that one first. So Sam in the Red Bull got the fastest lap of a 1 minute dead 0.1. For us, our fastest lap was a 1 minute 1.3, and I was pushing on a set of soft tyres for only 5 laps. The rest of the AIs were on medium tyres. So overall, we did not have the pace in the dry. In the wet, we had the pace, and crucially, the entire race was virtually wet, and we called our stop on the intermediates absolutely perfectly. So all in all, we played that race beautifully in our cards. We win the Grand Prix with a 24-second margin over Charles Leclerc, with Norris 2/10 behind Leclerc actually, 24 seconds back. Van Dorn finishes in P4 for Red Bull, with Max Verstappen claiming a very nice P5. Carlos Sainz finished the race in P6. I believe he still tried. He stayed on the inters till the end, and he stays in front of his teammate Hamilton, who finishes in 7th. Sam finishes the race in 8th place, with Nick De Vries claiming P9, and then Daniel Ricciardo finishes in 10th place for McLaren, and we already discussed the fastest lap. Looking at the second half of the table now, Mick Schumacher once again finishing close to the points, but not close enough. He's in 11th place, with Pierre Gasly finishing in 12th place for Renault. Not good for our teammate here today. Sergio Perez is 13th for Mercedes, with Oscar Piastri impressing again in 14th for Aston Martin. Callum Ilott is 15th for Ford, with Hulkenberg in 16th for Porsche. George Russell with a very disappointing race for Audi in 17th place, with Robert Schwartzman claiming 18th, with Bottas and Rees, the 2 drivers to DNF from today's Grand Prix. And of course, we already know about the rest. Looking at the Drivers' Championship then, and how that has changed things going into the next set of races. We are now on 182 points, with Charles Leclerc on 163 points. That means now we have a 19-point lead at the top of the championship over Charles Leclerc. There are still plenty of races to go, and there is definitely a title fight on, especially between myself and Charles Leclerc. Lando Norris moves himself in 3rd in the championship now on 129 points. He's very much having a fantastic season, with Rees now 4th in the championship at 127 points. Just to think about if Rees managed to get himself some points today, even if he got himself potentially, say, P2, because I don't know if Rees would have pitted for the Inters when we did. You know, Rees could have easily got a 2nd place, and that would have put him on 145 points. It would have put him right in contention in this championship. But that DNF here today, with me crucially getting a win, is a massive blow for him here today. Sam is 5th in the championship on 112 points. His momentum has stopped. He had some great momentum in the past few races, but that's really failed and started to trickle away at the moment, as Lewis Hamilton 6th in championship, now on 100 points, meaning we have 82 points covering the top 6. We've still got 5 or 6 races to go, so plenty of stuff can happen. Van Dorn 7th in the championship on 73 points. He's making his way up the championship order quite nicely. Sainz is 8th with 57 points. Gasly is on 54 points, and Verstappen now puts himself into the top 10 of the championship with 51 points. The next event for us is going to be the Italian Grand Prix. And now into the Constructors' Championship we move. We are still top of the championship with 236 points, but Audi are on 208 points in this championship. Red Bull are now up to third in the championship with 185 points. Jaguar are now on 180 points. Both those two teams have moved in front of McLaren, who had an awful race with only Ricciardo in P10 scoring a point and Reese DNFing, meaning they dropped 2 places in the Constructors. They're now on 177 points. Ferrari are still lacking behind with 157 points. They'll be hoping they can gain on those 3 teams around them, and even us actually to an extent, later on in this season. Mercedes are comfortably in 7th place with 55 points. Ford still have those 21 points to their name. Aston Martin have got the 2 points ahead of Porsche, who have just the 1 singular point. With that being said and done, that is everything from the Austrian Grand Prix. Let's go back to the paddock and see what the teams and drivers were saying after this race. Taking a look at the post-race notebook after the Austrian Grand Prix, Tom dominates in the wet to increase his championship leads. He managed to get the best of the wet weather conditions, fighting his way up to 2nd place before Reese crucially DNF'd from the Grand Prix. And then from there, Tom made the right call onto the intermediate tyres, built himself up a lovely margin, and then just took it to the flag with a late overtake on Carlos Sainz, who tried to gamble on the intermediate tyres. Charles Leclerc stormed his way up to P2, and Lando Norris secured himself P3, but unfortunately for Lando Norris, he was not happy at all. He was very angry after the race to lose out to 2nd place via Charles Leclerc. Leclerc overtook Lando Norris. Norris tried to fight it back and then had other opportunities to try and go for the move, but he missed out by 0.2 of a second. Charles Leclerc has been praised for an absolutely sensational comeback in the Grand Prix. Early in the race, Charles Leclerc was all the way down in 16th place after the first round of pit stops had taken place on the intermediate tyres. But from that point onwards, Charles Leclerc got his head down and did what he did best, and that is drive. And he managed to fight all the way up to 2nd place and keep himself in touch with his championship rival, Tom. Reese has called out McLaren after a crucial DNF here today. Reese was on course to try and potentially get himself a 2nd race win in a row, but that was not to be after his car let him down. And McLaren, of course, have now got some reliability problems to sort out. Daniel Ricciardo DNF'd from the last Grand Prix in Silverstone, and with Reese here today, now DNFing here in Austria, it is quite clear that McLaren have got some work to do. They have been pushed back now in this race after picking up just the 1 singular point. Can they fight back as the Formula 1 circus rolls over to the Temple of Speed at the Italian Grand Prix in Monza? You'll just have to wait and see very, very soon. But for now, we are out. Take care all. Peace.